Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Match Play. Today being the beginning of March 1st, I'm here joined by Cody Jeanette and Creighton Rabs for another edition here on the High School Roundup set. Cody, how's your day going?
So far, so good. You know, this is the last thing I got planned today. The most exciting thing, save the best for last.
Creighton, how about you?
Meh, let's get on with it.
All right, well, let's get on with it right now. We will start with the Cal U topics, then move on to regional Pittsburgh topics, and then American national topics. We'll begin with women's basketball. March Madness is approaching. The PSAC tournament starts tomorrow night, and Wednesday they played exactly who they're going to play again tomorrow night in Clarion. They came in with the victory. But Cody, why don't you tell me how they're going to be able to repeat tomorrow and hopefully come away with a victory in the first round?
Well, I'm going to be honest here. I believe that Clarion may have the upper hand when getting the loss because a preview game like this really gives you a first glance look at how the team works, how their offense works, how their defense works, and where you can work on and polish up to really capitalize and give your team the advantage. So I would be more confident in Cal if they lost last game actually, because now Clarion is going to go back in. They're going to be even hungrier than California is. But a preview game like this, yeah, in summary, it really works out to the losing team in my personal opinion because of the things that you can find to work on and capitalize and get your team the victory.
First thing Clarion needs to work on is their foul shooting. They missed 6 foul shots. You lose by 4. You are not going to win any games. I don't care if it's in the PSAC or in South Union Township Rec League basketball. But that being said, I completely disagree. I mean, Cal absolutely has the advantage. I mean, yes, granted, it's difficult to beat a team 3 times in 1 year. However, other than Hannah Heater and their freshman Tania Holmes, Clarion doesn't really have anybody who I think can match up with Antonenko or with Steph Michael or with Raya Gadsden or with whomever, or Arena Kukoc or wherever the Vulcans are out there. I'm calling a win for California tomorrow.
Well, 2 differing opinions right there. One going Clarion, one going with the Vulcans. And we'll have to see how they rebound from the loss, Clarion speaking, on Saturday night. Well, now moving to the men's, they also came off a big victory against Clarion Wednesday night, a double-digit victory at Clarion. And now tomorrow night they're going to face Slippery Rock again, who a couple weeks ago, Slippery Rock dominated California at the Convocation Center. So Creighton, we'll start with you. How do you think that game is going to go tomorrow for the Vulcans?
The only way the Vulcans are going to win tomorrow, quite frankly, is if Slippery Rock forfeits. Because let's be realistic. Cal does not match up well with Slippery Rock. The Rock has 4 players. Actually, they have 3 players who are averaging 10 points or more a game. You got a 4th player at 9.8 points per game. I mean, look, Cal's had up and down moments all year long, and we've discussed them ad nauseum. But you're going up to Slippery Rock. That is not exactly a hospitable place, even on a. So, I mean, all Cal can do right now at this point, play hard tomorrow, and by this time on Monday, we'll probably be looking ahead to next season.
I'm going to have to somewhat agree with Creighton there on that opinion. California is definitely going to have their work cut out for them in this game against Slippery Rock. As we saw last time they played, they had a landslide loss. And the weakest part of California's team is quite contradictory to one of Slippery Rock's strongest, and that's the rebounding. They have so many players who are above 6'5", 6'6". They have one of the tallest teams in the PSAC, if not the nation, and they're also one of the best rebounding teams in the nation because of that. And if you give them control of the ball and you don't get it, you're not going to score points, and they are.
Yeah, speaking on what you said, Cody, Slippery Rock has the highest rebounding margin in Division II all throughout the country, and I kind of agree with both you guys talking about Monday. We'll look ahead to the next season. But now we'll move on to football, and although football season is not going on, spring football is coming around, and California just hired a new defensive coordinator, Mike Lopez, out of Fairmont State, who was the head coach for the past 10 or so years. Now California has him as their defensive coordinator. Cody, how do you think his new scheme is going to change what the Vulcans do on defense?
Well, it'll be interesting. I mean, it's always interesting to see a new coach come to a team. whether it be any sport or any position, because the new strategies will come with that, new game sets, new mindsets. And with Lopez coming, what I'm really hoping is going to improve is California's ability to, I apologize if this doesn't make sense to people, to prevent nail-biting situations. I mean, they had quite a few really close games against some teams like the Coal Bowl and against IUP that should not have been close. And with the new coordinator here, it really could improve that, along with statistically overall, because you have a season or two even to fool around with it a little bit, get a little experimental, and see what it is exactly that works.
The thing I think California really needs to work on defensively next season, stopping the pass. You look at a team that allowed about 240 yards in the air per game, which that's 10th in the conference. Now the running, I think that there's also some red flags to go up there as well. They finished 3rd in the conference in run defense. But you have to factor in, they only allowed 3 yards rushing against Lock Haven. There were 4 games last season where the Vulcans allowed 200 yards on the ground. And you look back at the Westchester game, Rondell White ran all over the Vulcans. There were so many openings, you'd think you were on 43 at the night. So I think they have a good defense, but yes, there are some holes to fill, and we'll see where it goes from there.
Yeah, a couple holes, Cody. I like what you said about the nail-biter games, IUP, Kutztown, and the run defense in some of the games I watched was a little bit stagnant at times. Well, now we will move on to our fan topic, and you fans, although you haven't yet, can go on to facebook.com/CUTV and submit a topic for us to answer here on the show, and I will throw my own in today, and I will ask you boys, who is your favorite athlete of all time and why? And Creighton, we'll start with you.
Okay, I'm going to show my age a little bit, but out of all, me personally, growing up, before I moved to Philly, I lived in New England. It wasn't my idea, it was my parents' idea. But that being said, I'd have to go with Larry Bird. He was a guy, he could do it all. He wasn't flashy. He was a blue-collar type guy. You go all the way back to his career at Indiana State. He and Magic Johnson had their rivalry in college back in '79. They took it to the next level when they both went into the NBA, which basically saved the league. And it's just, you grow up, you just have fond memories of seeing 3 NBA titles at the old Boston Garden. My only regret was I never got to see him play live at Boston Garden, but that's my choice.
Yeah, well, my choice, I'm going to go a little bit more modern here, Zach, and I'll tell you what, honestly, this was a really, really hard question for me to come up with an answer to, because I have favorite athletes in all sports. But I'm going to cut more to the modern side and relate to probably what more viewers of this show know about. And my favorite athlete would have to be Heath Miller of the Pittsburgh Steelers. There is no question about it. He is, without a doubt, one of the most underrated players in the National Football League, whether it be offensive or defensive. What he does is really simple. He goes out there, does his job, catches those short passes, nails those key blocks, and whenever he does his job, he doesn't showboat about it, and I love that.
Yeah, 2 great picks right there. Larry Legend for the Celtics and Heath Miller. Gonna miss him next season if he doesn't play for the Steelers. But now we are done with the Cal U topics, starting to heat some things up right here. We will come back with the Pittsburgh regional topics here on Match Play. Well, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Match Play here on the High School Roundup set at CUTV. We are moving on to our Pittsburgh regional sports topics. And to begin things, we will talk about the Pittsburgh Penguins. They are almost halfway through their season. They're going through a little bit of a stretch where they're losing some games by some big scores, letting a lot of power play goals go in. Now the question to you, as the trade deadline approaches coming soon, halfway through the season, Cody, we'll start with you. who is going to be the one piece the Penguins look to add this year?
Well, Zach, I am glad that you mentioned about the Penguins losing to these teams by high scores, because who I'm looking for them to get back onto the team is another defensive upgrade. And who else than Ryan Whitney? Ryan Whitney, a former Penguin, he did such a great job for the team. And with him coming back, it could really build up our defense, especially with defenders like Lovejoy being traded. And then hopefully the scores will be limited in their losses or their victories, and they'll get more victories out of it. But that's really what they need, and it would be really nice for Whitney to have another homecoming coming back to Pittsburgh, because a lot of fans here loved him, and what he does for this defense could be really well.
One of the biggest needs right now for the Pens, other than to stop drawing stupid penalties, a second line left winger. You saw Ray Shero was out in Minnesota scouting out this kid by the name of Pierre-Marc Bouchard. So, Minnesota was giving him more playing time. They send a kid down to their affiliate in Houston. You get a sense that Minnesota is showcasing this Bouchard kid. Ray Shero is not going to make a trip out to Minnesota when they're not playing him this year, just for the heck of it. So he might be on the radar, but if you can get the rest of these guys healthy, you may not need another piece. I mean, I'm pretty confident the Pens will be fine, assuming they're healthy.
Yeah, the defense and the wingers are both kind of hitting it right now on the ice. I think one name to watch, Jarome Iginla from the Calgary Flames, see if the Penguins offer up enough pieces to get him. Well, now we will move on to the Steelers, and the Steelers are going through restructures yet again this offseason. Roethlisberger, Timmons, and Brown already restructuring their contracts, and LaMarr Woodley coming up next. So with the added cap space that they will get from these contracts being restructured, Creighton, who do you think is one free agent that they could go after?
It's really hard to pick out one specific name per se, because my philosophy nowadays on free agency in the NFL is just you're better off drafting or even bringing in unsigned, undrafted free agents, get them in the system, fresh, out of college, whatever. But one name I've seen mentioned around is maybe a backup quarterback, because we don't know if Leftwich is going to come back. I doubt that he will. We don't know if Byron Batch is going to come back. That's probably questionable. The one name that's been mentioned is Jason Campbell. He used to be the quarterback down in Washington, and most recently, if I'm not mistaken, was with the Bears. So he's had some experience as a starter, because right now, you don't know how healthy Roethlisberger is going to be going forward next season.
Well, in my mind, there are three major areas that the Steelers need to improve on. There's cornerbacks, the running depth, and the offensive line. Roethlisberger was hurried so many unnecessary times, and that the offensive line could really use an upgrade, especially since they've been plagued with injuries for the past few years. So I'm not really going to pick out a name, like a specific name, but those are the three areas that I believe that the Steelers really need to target, because you have there's speculations that like Ryan Clark and Mike Wallace aren't coming back. Mike Wallace is on offense. I apologize, I got that backwards. But Troy Polamalu on defense also, and the offensive line, those really need to be improved.
Yeah, although the Steelers won't have a lot of money, they can go after some small-name guys. You see today the Falcons releasing a trio of stars from their team, including Michael Turner and John Abraham. So we'll see if the Steelers go after any of those big names. Now moving on to the third big team in Pittsburgh, the Pittsburgh Pirates. Spring training is still going on down in Bradenton, Florida. And my question for you guys is there a prospect on the team right now who can step up in spring training and make the Major League roster out of spring training after the World Baseball Classic concludes? And Cody, we'll start with you.
Looking at the offensive numbers for spring training so far this year, I really like Felix Pye. We acquired him from the Indians in the offseason, if I recall correctly. And so far, he's really stepped up offensively with Jordy Mercer and Clint Barmas. They've gotten the most at-bats of the team so far. They each have 9 at-bats, I believe. But Pye is leading the way in on-base percentage plus slugging. And when you take a look at how many times he's been at bat, he's driven in the most runs. He has 5 RBIs so far, a .444 average. It's, I believe, third in spring training so far, but in account for how many times he's batted, he's a really good guy to look out for.
I think one of the areas I think the Pirates are going to be looking at is it's going to be pitching. You hear a lot about Cole. You hear about Jameson Taillon. Those are probably two players I think have a chance, probably the best chance to get on the roster and make the trip back up north at the end of spring training. I think you could also make a good argument, but that being said, it's always a crapshoot, especially with this organization, because you could draft prospects who, when they come in, they're best in their position, and then historically, it hasn't worked out well for the Pirates. So it's really a crapshoot, quite frankly.
Yeah, I like both of your choices. Cole will probably be up sometime in 2013, being the number one prospect. And Cody, it's actually PA, but he's not a rookie, but he has produced a lot in his years with the Cubs and Indians before he came to the Pirates. So now we will move on to our final topic. WPIAL basketball championships are going on in the coming days. And now looking at the final championships games, you got teams like Newcastle, Chartiers Valley, Burrell even in there. So Creighton, who's the one Cinderella team you've looked at this postseason?
I think on the boys' side, Burrell is certainly in that list. You have a 7 seed. Okay, no, and they had to qualify in a play-in game to get into the round of 16 in AA boys. But to me, I think the real Cinderella team that nobody really saw coming, Clairton. Okay, they went up to Lincoln Park Tuesday night. They beat them 71-70. Now, we all know Clairton's a big football school, but who knew they were this good in basketball? So I can't really pick out a Cinderella story on the girls' side, but in the overall tournament, I would have to go with Clairton as probably my Cinderella pick. I mean, but then again, to be perfectly honest, it's hard to follow high school basketball when they don't have a shot clock. It's just excruciating.
Yeah, well, Zach, I am going to, since Creighton picked a couple boys teams that have really been noted, I'm going to go with the girls team on the AAA side, and that is, as you mentioned earlier, Chartiers Valley. Because in one of the previous rounds, they went to Mount Lebanon, they played Mount Lebanon, and Mount Lebanon was really favored in that game. They had the better record, better offensive numbers, and they edged them out by 3 points. So that really had to have kicked a lot of adrenaline into this whole entire team, and going into the championship rounds, it'll really fuel them up knowing that they had such a strong stand against a team like that.
Yeah, a lot of big upsets. Lincoln Park, like you said, they were the number one overall team, losing, and Chartiers Valley and the women's still getting things done. Well, we are done with the Pittsburgh regional topics. We have one segment left, and things are about to get American here on the Match Play set on CUTV.
CUTV is always on the air online. Like us on Facebook for upcoming events and status updates. Follow us on Twitter at CUTV_PA for behind-the-scenes exclusives. For streaming news and sports coverage, subscribe to our YouTube channels. CUTV social media. It's always online.
Welcome back to Match Play here at CUTV on the High School Roundup set. We are entering our third segment, the American National Topics, if you'd rather call it. Joining next to me, Cody Jeanette and Creighton Rabs once again, and we will get things started. Gonzaga men's basketball coming off a thrilling victory last night, 70-65 over BYU. I watched the game myself. They almost gave it away, but they pulled out in the end. And discussion is, are they going to be number one overall? Yes, probably. But do they deserve a number one seed in the NCAA tournament in late March? Cody, we'll start with you.
Well, yes. I mean, I really don't understand how this is somewhat of a question. I mean, maybe I read it wrong whenever I was looking over the topics today, but if a school does as well as Gonzaga has done and gets clutch wins, puts up those offensive numbers, beats the stronger teams, yes, they do deserve the number one spot. And they fought for it. They deserve it, whether they be a small name school or not. I mean, they're not like the traditional Duke, Kansas, Indiana, Florida State number ones that we see up there for the past 20-something years or something like that. You know, it's great for the small name schools like Gonzaga to make a name for themselves on occasion, but in closing, yes, they do deserve that number one spot.
And it's not entirely unprecedented because you look back at 2004, St. Joe's, which is in the Atlantic 10, and nobody's going to confuse the A10 with the Big East or the ACC. They were the number one team in the country. They went 27-0. They got knocked out of the conference tournament. They were still good enough to be a number one seed despite being a mid-major. Gonzaga has had this track record of being a top 10, top 25 team for many years. So this isn't exactly some team that's been hiding under the radar. So I think anybody who says that Gonzaga is not worthy of a number one seed in the tournament, I mean, hello, St. Joe's at least got to the Elite Eight. They were basically a Hail Mary three-pointer away from going to the Final Four. So, yes, Gonzaga is worthy.
I believe Gonzaga is worthy, too. The argument being there that Duke, Indiana, they play a lot of bigger name schools, and when they get to their postseason tournaments, they can take out a bunch of the top 50 in the nation. But now we will move on to our next topic, baseball. We're talking about safety yet again in the sport. Plate collisions are being talked about being taken out of the game. Looking back at Buster Posey a couple years ago breaking his leg at home. Creighton, do you think plate collisions should be banned from baseball?
You know, if you ban home plate collisions in baseball, you might as well ban checking in hockey. I mean, if you're running from third, you're trying to score, and the catcher's blocking the plate, you're not going to slow up and let him tag you. Maybe I'm old school that way. I can't help it. Now, what happened with Buster Posey, was that unfortunate? Yes. I mean, do we see a lot of home plate collisions where you may get banged up a little bit, and injuries, unfortunately, they're part of the game. But that being said, I do not want to see these home plate collisions banned. You know, it's just that excitement level. You're charging home, he's blocking you, who's going to win?
It really gives an unfair advantage to the catchers if you eliminate home plate collisions. I agree with Creighton completely. They should not be eliminated from the sport. That idea is just preposterous to me because exactly what are you going to do if your catcher is standing in the baseline, the only legal part of the field where a base runner can run from third to home plate? What else is he to do? He can't go around him too far because he risks being out anyway. It gives a really unfair advantage to the catchers because then they can just stand their ground without risking themselves getting hit or anything, and they can really get the runner out easily.
Yeah, I don't agree with it either. I think they need to stay in. Maybe MLB can create some rules where they make it a little bit safer perhaps, but the collisions I think should stay. They're a fun part of the game to watch whenever something happens. Next topic, we're going to move into the Catholic 7, who is now actually going to be called the new Big East Conference. They are adding two new teams in Xavier and Butler, looking to add, no pun intended, Creighton as a 10th team later on. Now, the Catholic 7, do you think they're going to be a successful league, and will they eliminate the need for the old Big East and disband them? Cody, I'm going to start with you.
Well, it's always fun to see new conferences pop into the mix and scramble the teams around a little bit. And with this new conference coming in, I'm not necessarily sure if the old conference is going to get eliminated because they still have a shot in remaining in the NCAA as any other conference does. But it's really interesting to see and really fun to watch some new teams start playing each other, quite possibly. New division rivalries pop up. And the playoff picture getting a lot more interesting with the more conferences. Sure, it can complicate things maybe, and that could be a reason why you want to eliminate the old Big East, just to eliminate complications. But yes, they will live, and it'll be really interesting to watch.
Noteworthy quote from Louisville head coach Rick Pitino. Quote, I think they, in the Catholic 7, should get the name Big East. Without question, the Catholic 7 deserves a Big East name. They should have, in my estimation, broken away from the football schools 3 years ago. That is what really drove apart the Big East. When they started this league back in the late 70s, early 80s, it was all the basketball schools, and that was their focus. And then in the mid-90s, they decided, we're going to make football our focus when they bring in Miami and Virginia Tech. And basically, you had the original schools, the Villanovas, the Georgetowns, the St. John's, the Providences. They were being left out in the lurch. So, as far as I'm concerned, the Catholic 7 deserves a Big East name. The other schools, later.
Well, the old Big East has signed a contract with ESPN for TV rights, and ESPN is actually looking to change their name. So we'll see how that goes in the coming months, or maybe even possibly sooner than that, depending on what ESPN decides to do. Well, we will move on to our final topic here, NFL free agency. The salary cap was raised to $123 million yesterday. Roger Goodell making it official. Now, Creighton, my question to you is, the Tier A free agents like the Mike Wallaces, Ryan Clady, people like them, are they going to get more money now that the salary cap has been raised?
Short term, maybe. Long term, I don't think so. You're looking around the NFL, and the sense I'm getting is that the trend is these GMs, coaches, they want to develop younger talent via the draft or unsigned free agents. I don't think you're going to see the mega deals like Drew Brees, who basically all but threatened to hold out unless he got the contract that he wanted from the New Orleans Saints a couple years ago. And then you see these big contracts coming up, and you look at the Steelers. They've had to restructure their contract with Roethlisberger a couple times. They may have to do it again just to get under the cap. I don't think you're going to see mega deals much in the league anymore.
Well, this whole salary cap raise certainly has its pros and cons. I'm going to start with the pros in being that with more money under your belt to be able to work with, it opens up more windows of opportunities to get some players from the draft or from free agency and see what happens exactly with your roster and how in-depth you can make it and the chemistry and everything. Con-wise, it could really create a lot of problems for your big-name stars because their mindset, they're gonna think, oh, this team has more money to work with. They'll give me more because I'm important. But see, the question is, will the franchise be willing to do that? So that could really cause some issues with some big-name players.
Yeah, I agree with both of your points, and Creighton, an added point to what you said, the salary cap is expected to go up as the years go on. But like you said, short term they might get more money. Well, that is all for us here on Match Play today. Now it is up to you, the fans, to go on to Facebook.com and vote for who you think has won today's segment. And now closing words, guys. Creighton, I'll start with you. How is being on the set today?
Not too bad. I'm just hoping that the WIVIAC final on the women's side is Fairmont State and Seton Hill, two teams California beat. So if that if that meeting happens tomorrow in Charleston, it helps the Vulcans in the regional rankings.
Cody, how are you?
Lots of interesting topics discussed today. A lot of them, time has to tell the story. So maybe next time we're here, we'll be discussing all of the effects.
Yeah, time always tells a story with sports. Well, that is all for our time here at CUTV. And thank you for watching Match Play. I'm Zach Lamar, Creighton Rabs, Cody Jeanette. Thank you for watching.